We're glad you're with us on First Take. We continue to look for ways to have conversations, to educate, enlighten, and maybe open some eyes during this time, and doing it all through the vein of sports. So now we are so glad to welcome in James Blake, of course, playing 14 years on the pro circuit in tennis and former tennis pro. James, you had a run-in with New York City police in 2015 when you were in town for the U.S. Open in front of a Manhattan hotel. I'll let you take it from here and tell your story.
Yeah, I was just standing waiting to be taken to the U.S. Open, waiting for my car outside a hotel, and got attacked by a police officer. He ran up to me, and you see the video there. I was just standing there, and thankfully, because of who I was during the U.S. Open, I actually thought this was someone running up as a fan. I think about how lucky I was that was my reaction, because this man already had it in his mind that there was going to be an altercation. I was smiling at him with my hands down, and he still decided to tackle me, put his knee in my back, and handcuff me. So if I had fought back or if I had run, I have a feeling it would have been much, much worse and possibly tragic. So I feel lucky about that. But I was just thinking this was a fan coming up, but he said that they had information that I was part of a credit card scam ring or something, and a nonviolent criminal that they were looking for. And he just tackled me thinking that was me. And obviously it wasn't. I had nothing to do with it. And they got the wrong guy.
Given that experience, James, how did you feel when watching the George Floyd video?
You know, as probably a lot of America has been, I've been on a roller coaster of emotions. That night when I saw it, I was just saddened. Another tragedy. So sad for the family, for those that are affected. And then so sad really for America. I really believed that night that it was going to be something that was in and out of the news cycle after just a few days, because we've seen so many of these cases. We've seen this happen time and time again. And then the next day, I can't tell you how encouraged I was by so many people speaking out, by protesting. And then a few days later to know that they got Officer Chauvin criminally charged, first fired, then criminally charged, all 4 officers now criminally charged. I don't think that would have happened if it wasn't for the protesters. So I'm completely encouraged that people are taking a stand, and America hasn't become totally desensitized and numb to the fact that this is an ongoing tragedy that's happening in our country.
James, as you point out, there have been so many videos over the last few years of police mistreatment. Your incident, the one you described, that was 2015, right? It's been 5 years. Why do you think attitudes have evolved so much on this so quickly this time around?
You know, I'm not sure. I just saw that piece you guys did, and I think people are finally saying enough is enough. And one of the biggest things I think is we also don't have sports. I talk about in my book about sports being a way of connecting people, a way of getting through tough times. We don't have any real sports right now. I mean, I know golf's back, but we don't have a lot of the major sports back. And I think the biggest factor is that the majority is now taking this up as a cause. For decades, the Black community has been screaming about this, has been screaming about police violence, police brutality, the way we're treated, the way cops abuse their power in these situations. And now people are much more willing to listen. I think having the majority on our side, having white people at a lot of these protests, a lot of these rallies, it is so powerful, and it's making a difference. And it's going all the way to legislation being changed. 50A is going to be repealed in New York, making it so that they'll be much more transparent. They got Breonna's law passed in Kentucky, where the no-knock warrants will be gone. They're making real change because so many people are fighting for this cause.
What were your interactions like growing up with the police? You grew up in Fairfield, Connecticut, which is a fairly affluent town. What do you remember about growing up and having run-ins with the police then?
Well, I remember the conversations I had with my dad. I didn't understand it at the time, why he wanted me home earlier. He wanted me not in huge groups, and because it was mostly white. It was probably 95% white in that community, and he knew that my brother and I was a kid that had dreads. That seems like I know a lifetime ago, but had braids or dreads in my hair. My brother was a big, tall guy, and we stood out. So he didn't want us in those situations, because if the cops came, he said, you're the ones that are going to get singled out. And then, of course, anytime we started driving, if we were driving our parents' car, if we were driving at all, we got pulled over. My brother and I got pulled over with guns drawn one time when we were coming back from doing a charity event, actually, in New York. And the things that happened, I feel like every black person, black man, especially in this country, has those situations. You're a young black man. I got some money when I started out on tour and had some nice cars, and you're driving a nice car. You're a 20-something black guy. I got pulled over. I still remember getting pulled over once, then going to take care of the ticket at the DMV and getting pulled over on the way home. I mean, those kind of things just happen. It was a daily occurrence, and it seems like now people are more willing to listen to those. Back then, it was kind of the punchline in a movie, or the punchline for any sort of satirical episode where it's okay that you're getting followed around in a store. You got someone questioning whether you can afford something. You got those kind of things happening. But now people are realizing like that is dehumanizing. That happens to you over and over again. Eventually, it starts to have an effect on your feeling of who you are as a person.